রিবার্থের পুরা কাহিনীটা it's told through the point of view of Wally West. Yes, the Wally West, not the African American Wally West of New 52. However, it's the Wally West, our Wally West, the 90s Wally West, the one we thought was lost forever. It's told through his point of view. And the first thing that's the way this comic book starts, I mean, that is significant in itself. The first lines are, I look down at it and know without question, I love this world, but there's something missing. এটা Wally West বলতেছে. But you know what? It's kind of like, it's not Wally Wester মুখ দিয়ে Jeff Johns কথাটা বলাচ্ছে, but it stands for all of us long-time DC fans. That, hey, I do love DC Comics, I love this universe, but there's something fucking missing. And এখান থেকে শুরু করে, Wally Westকে দিয়ে এসে করে, the way Jeff Johns, just sets up the whole thing, that, something went wrong in DC Universe right after Flashpoint. That, some invisible, this all-powerful being, like, no one knows who it is. It took 10 years of events and stuff away from DC Universe and kind of de-aged all the superheroes. And that's why things feel different in New 52. However, somehow Wally West, he kind of remembers this world as it was before. And he's kind of slowly being erased out of continuity. There's a very meta feel to this. And he's trying his best to, meet up with, find someone who's going to listen to him, who will recognize him. But in this New 52 universe, no one recognizes him. He's just trying to, সে প্রথমে, for example, সে ব্যাটম্যানের কাছে যায়, but ব্যাটম্যান তাকে চিনতে পারে না. তারপরে সে লিন্ডা পার্কের কাছে যায়. এখন লিন্ডা পার্ক is basically Wally West's girlfriend and eventually his wife and mother of his 2 kids. She Linda Parker kache jai, but even of course Linda Park does not know who he is anymore either.
That was a humdinger, because for me actually, my heart was breaking because Linda did not recognize Wally, and so seeing him just zooming across the universe, just trying to get that one, that one hint that someone remembers who he is, you're like, oh, it's not gonna happen. It's just, gonna fizzle out, and then Barry will have another Flashpoint moment or something. And I was kind of right. It was all up to Barry in the end, but it was kind of cool that, before he got there, he looked over his namesake, and he saw that, the other Wally was gonna be someone. It's gonna be someone who enjoys being a hero, and that was kind of cool. And but the main thing was having Wally see who Barry Allen is, because essentially we never got to really enjoy Barry Allen, because after Wally West comes back and Barry Allen comes back, everything disintegrates in the DC line. We just focus on Barry for 12 issues and then go straight into Flashpoint, which completely erases any mention of any other speedsters. So the whole post-Final Crisis and all these things, Wally's been kind of nobody. So having Wally come back and reconnect with his mentor, because the Silver Age was not only Barry Allen, it was Wally West as Kid Flash. I mean, this is the one legacy where both of them grew up together. Sorry, I'm saying a lot. Grew up together and learned to be heroes together, essentially. I know, this Barry was of course the older hero, so he had more experience, but at the same time, Wally was never a slouch. So that whole moment of Barry bringing Wally back, it healed the heart a little bit, and it was great.
এটা হচ্ছে রিবার্থের ক্লাইম্যাক্স. এটা দিয়ে basically kind of like, it's kind of like, again, it speaks for all of us. Like, all of us longtime fans, we are Wally West, who has been saved by Jeff Johns or, Barry Allen in the comic book Flash. And, and এরপরে কি হচ্ছে? এরপরে it's like, now they're trying to figure out who was this all-powerful supreme being who could play around with DC Universe continuity. Like someone so powerful. Like Wally West ek jagay bole that, it's someone who is even more powerful than Darkseid, who is manipulating things behind the scenes, who's like playing around, who's playing God, who's playing around with the continuity of DC Universe. So who can be this guy? আর এইখানে হচ্ছে Jeff Johns shows, like, what a bloody genius he is. কারণ of all the things, of all the ways he could explain this, he explains it via Watchmen. Yes, Alan Moore's Watchmen, the, possibly the most famous graphic novel of all time that DC ever released. I mean, this is just so brilliant. Last scene ever kore dekhai boli, I mean, if you have read Watchmen, you know that Watchmen and Last Day, Dr. Manhattan, the near omnipotent being, he leaves Earth. He says that, what, I'm here, I'm gonna go somewhere else, I'm just gonna do my own thing, I'm gonna do my own experiments. There's a key line in Alan Moore's Watchmen. The last thing he says is like, maybe I'm going to create new worlds. Jeff Johns took that line literally. এবং DC Rebirth এর লাস্টের দিকের এপিলগে he hints, কারণ দেখা যায় যে Batman, he's looking for clues. Batman finds Watchmener symbol যেটা everyone knows is that smiley face logo with the drop of blood on it. Batman finds that. And for us fans, we know who has been behind this thing all along. Yes, Dr. Manhattan has been playing God. This whole thing that was done with New 52, the way Jeff Johns explains it is that is basically Dr. Manhattan creating a new universe.
We're hopeful that there's at least some general idea of what's going on. That, you have to admit, was the problem with the New 52. When they were first advertising Flashpoint, I don't think anyone recalls, but essentially it was really a Flash event. Flash does some stuff, and all that. But then all of a sudden they spun it off into a whole, essentially, mini crisis for no reason at all. And that was to force themselves into Rebirth. And then, they're saying, oh, now everything, not Rebirth, force themselves into the New 52. And, they're saying, like, some things changed, other things haven't, but, all this and that. It was a mess. And this is essentially an apology letter, which is great. And I'm really hopeful, not only because the storylines seem interesting, but also because they've recognized, or they've tried to recognize, as many of the problem areas the New 52 had in plugging it in. And that's great. I don't mind them using New 52 stuff, but they gotta bring it up to a level that makes me want to connect. Like I said, the big problem with the new Wally West of New 52 is that he just had the name, but he didn't have the characteristics, he didn't have anything that we can relate to. So now it's all about relations, of whether or not, all these things can stick. And in Rebirth, that's what it seems to imply that this will happen. So story-wise, we seem to be okay. Many of the creative teams, interesting. Like, I haven't read any of Tom King's stuff except for that We Are Robin's, the Robin War crossover thing, so I'm kind of interested. Everyone's been talking him up. I really hope he doesn't disappoint. Of course, because, I like Batman. And, people been talking about Flash. I love the Flash. Everyone knows that. So, yeah, there's so many things that seem promising. And the one thing that I am really hopeful for is because they've been teasing Rebirth a little more properly, it seems. A little less, haha, we're just new universe. It seems that they've got their act together and are working together to make a bit more of a consistent line-wide change. Let's see how it all works out, of course, because, it'll vary from how each writer and each artist bring into their own respective stories. That's fine. But we need to see that there's some kind of unity behind this, because, Marvel Comics, they have, the whole reality thing. But for us DC fans, it's always about the bigger picture of the greater universe in itself. And if the universe doesn't feel right, then the stories don't feel right. And so I'm optimistic, and I don't expect it to all be bright and cheery and all that. That's fine. It can be dark and grim and all that, but it's more of just having a grand unified universe again. That's going to be great, And I'm going to say that.
DC Rebirth, just look at the artists who are involved. They're like, not just one. Ekta flat একটা ফ্ল্যাটের জন্য, একটা 80 পাতা চটি একটু একটা কমিক বইয়ের জন্য, DC has used 4 of their best artists along with Jeff Johns. And you know what? They all mesh in really well. I mean, who's doing this? Gary Frank, the artist of Batman Earth 1 and 2. There's Ethan Van Sciver. Ethan Van Sciver is legendary, one of the best artists in DC. He has drawn Green Lantern. He has drawn Aquaman. তারপরে Even Reich has drawn Aquaman. He has drawn Green Lantern as well. তারপরে Phil Jimenez. Phil Jimenez is he's one of the big shot artists of DC comic book as well. All these guys are involved. Like এই চারটা top artist কে নিছে খালি একটা comic বইয়ের জন্য. So you can understand DC means business. And you know what? The art in this book is just fantastic. I know I can't show it to you. I wish I could, but and like because sometimes when you have multiple artists working on a book, they don't really mesh well together. But it's just brilliant the way they work here. And not just them. Like this art is complemented by some of the best colorists in the business. Like there's Hi-Fi who's involved. There's Santorelli. There's Anderson. DC is going all out. They really, it's not just like it just obviously they aim to make money with this, but at the same time they're also serious about reclaiming their lost legacy.
In the end, how would I rate Rebirth? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that story hit me in the heart. In a good way, because seriously, with my health conditions, I'd rather not have to deal with heart problems as well. So, story-wise, great. I would give it a 9 out of 10. The reason I'm docking a point is that there are some points that I think he could have focused more on, or he should have just done away with, he meaning Jeff Johns, so that the story seems a little less, what's the word, potpourri of the DC universe. Because, like I said, the Aqualad and him being meshed with the Damian Wayne scene, one of those scenes could have gone away and we would have been okay with it. I think I would have liked a bit more of Aqualad and establishing him and his whole situation. So yeah, that's one point gone. The art, I would say, I'm really happy with the fact that with having so many artists, they've kept it fairly consistent, which is a very difficult thing. And I know, Ivan Reis and Van Scriver, fairly similar in art style, and of course they work together with Jeff Johns on Green Lantern. But with those guys and everyone else, they really, you can see they worked hard to keep it as seamless as possible. That's why I'm very hopeful, because this must have taken not a month's worth of work, but several months of work to gel and collaborate, which means that they've been thinking about it and trying to figure out how to keep this universe together. So I'm going to give that a 10, actually. It may be of a DC house style, but it's so nice to see that the house style works over several artists.